All right, so as they say, lead generation is the lifeblood of any business. However, what if you're not good at lead generation? And what if you want to be, you want that to be your strength and you want to be really good at lead generation, but let's say that's just not your strength at the moment because you're in a very beginner position, which it's okay. And deep down inside, you want to progress and you can progress. You just may not have the right guidance or the right mentorship in front of you in person, so you feel alone, right? And you may feel like an imposter because you truly don't know the game down to a T, at least not yet, right? So, and I know I probably shouldn't be recording as I'm driving, but you know what? I just felt like I really had to record this message. So I'm recording this whether I fucking crash or not, but let's try not to. All right, let's try to drive safe here. So let's say you want to progress towards lead generation, the front end of the company, and the sales, closing the sales. You want to be that extroverted role, let's just say. And not that the introverted role is not the role to be, because that's a very important role as well. The engineering and the technical side of the business you're running, right? All the analytic parts and all the numbers and running everything in the back end that doesn't shine as much but is still very important. Let's say that's your strength. I would work on that strength, but at the end of the day, just like I said in my last video, it all comes down to client acquisition and lead generation, whichever order you want to put that in. Lead generation, let's just put that first, because first you got to generate leads to acquire clients. So lead generation and client acquisition, okay? At the end of the day, whether you're an introvert or not, or whether you want to work on the back end of the company or not, lead generation and client acquisition is still some of the most important components of any business. Just like Daniel Priestley says, he's the author of Score at Marketing and Key Person of Influence, which Daniel Priestley is someone I highly respect just because of what he knows as far as marketing goes and his story with his mentor, John. He said lead generation is the lifeblood of any business, really. It all boils down to lead generation. And if you can't get that first part right, forget about the rest. And it's true, because lead generation and client acquisition is how your business is going to progress, because the more data you get from the market, the better you are off. So why would you not at least nurture a little bit on the lead generation and client acquisition side of things? That's what's actually going to help you. So why wouldn't you work on that as the foundation of the business? Even if it's not you working on that side of things, someone has to be working on the lead generation and client acquisition side of things, because then how are you going to get new clients if you're not generating new leads and new people to speak to? How are you going to close clients? How are you going to make any sales and close transactions if you don't have anyone to speak to? Well, even if you're an introvert and you prefer the back end side of things, you still need to worry about the lead generation and the client acquisition. Someone has to fill in that role, because a business requires sales to be a business. Now, let's say you're in the position where you're like, Alex, I want to be in that position of getting good at lead generation and client acquisition and closing deals left and right. I want to be in that position. I just am not confident right now. I just don't have the balls to cold call or to close deals or to go over the objections and, kind of dig down into the pains and stuff and call it out to the prospect, right? I don't know how to handle that. Let me think about it. Or when people hang up on me on cold calls, I don't know how to handle that. Well, look, I was in a position like that not too long ago where I couldn't me, Alex, I couldn't pick up the phone and call comfortably. And by call, I mean cold call. People that weren't even expecting my calls, right? I couldn't pick up the phone and call comfortably. It was extremely hard for me to do. It was a mental battle in my head that I just extremely hard, let me tell you that. First couple of times picking up the phone for cold calls, it was like a nightmare for me in my head to just do 1 or 2 calls. It was hard. It was really hard for me. And this is me being very vulnerable, but it was extremely hard. And don't even get me started on sales calls, because that was even worse. I'm like, oh man, it's like now I got to spend 45 to an hour on a Zoom call with someone, and I don't know how to be on this call. So my point is, if you want to be someone who is actually worthy of doing the cold calls and doing the hard shit and closing the deals left and right, if you want to be someone in that position, you just don't have the ability at the moment, well, let me tell you this. You get there by taking the first step and then the second one, and then just repeat that process over and over and over and over again consistently. I personally wasn't good at any type of cold calls, any type of sales calls, and I wasn't the best at it. But you know how I got really good and confident at that? Well, by doing it. How do you do it when you can't do it physically because your brain is not allowing you to? You fucking fight through that shit, man, because it's up to you at the end of the day. I had no person next to me at my desk saying, Alex, okay, pick up the phone and start dialing, like the Wolf of Wall Street said, pick up the phone and start dialing, right? No, so I didn't have anyone next to me that said that to me, or that said, hey, let's do this together, or even on Zoom, hey, let's do this together. I had no one that did that for me, which it would have helped a lot, let me tell you that. Just because me by myself, it was tough to pick up the phone voluntarily saying, I'm gonna call, and I'm gonna call. I'm gonna force myself to call. It was tough to do that. It was extremely tough to do that, let me tell you. So I had to figure out, okay, I'm gonna have to call someone sooner or later. I'm gonna have to cold call these leads sooner or later. How am I gonna do it? Well, as cheesy as it sounds, I mentally had to make a switch and say, I need to fucking call. Like, there is no more fucking around. I've been procrastinating too long, and it gets to a point where you're just sick of telling yourself, yeah, I'm gonna do it tomorrow, today's not the day, right? And you just keep procrastinating and procrastinating, because I was in that position. At the point, I wanted to get good at the lead generation and the client acquisition. I wanted to get good at it. I just didn't know how to do it, because no experience, no training, lack of everything, you could say. Well, if you want to get good at that side of things, the front end of the company, it's gonna take you picking up your balls and saying, I'm gonna fucking do it. And I know it's easy to say now, believe me, it's easier said than done, all right, is what I'm trying to say. Easier said than done. Because when you actually say, you know what, I'm gonna fucking do it, I'm gonna do it, you know what, tomorrow is the day, and then the day comes, and then the moment comes, and then you're like, fuck, dude, and then a part of you is just resisting really, really, really hard. And you're like, man, fuck, I want to do it, but I don't. And so how do you fight through that? How do you actually fight through that? Which, that was one of the toughest things I had to do, let me tell you that. And thankfully now I can pick up the phone and cold call whoever. Okay? Obviously I have to know what I'm talking to them about, right? It's not going to be about a service that I don't know about. It's going to be about the service that I do at the moment with my advertising agency, Master Media. And I'm going to talk to them about what it is that I know, because after so much experience and so much cold calls that I've forced myself to do, now I know how to do them. Now I have the experience, right? That's why I say that experience counts so much more than any diploma or any bullshit certification, any textbook, any masterclass that's going to teach you valuable things. I promise you this, the right experience is going to teach you so much more than any textbook or masterclass. And the reason why is because you now have that experience ingrained in you to a point where you lived through it, okay? You did it, all right? And now you can be like, okay, I know how to do this well enough that as I was doing the cold calls, this was me when I first started cold calling, as I was doing the cold calls, I noticed that each call got easier and easier and easier because of the experience I was gaining. But here's what's funny. If you don't keep going to the gym, you're gonna lose your muscle. Obvious, right? It's the exact same thing with cold calling, client acquisition, closing deals, right? Or whatever activity that you're practicing that you want to get good at. In this case, this video, it's lead generation and client acquisition. If you want to get good at that, you just don't really know how to go, you don't really know how to go about it. Well, let me tell you this. The more that you do it, the better off you're gonna be, because it's gonna get easier and easier and easier. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because I have experience from that I'm telling you. When I first started cold calling, it was the hardest thing I've ever done besides talking to girls for the first time, which to me was really hard to do, just because I feel like I was born an introvert, yet I cracked out of my shell to become an extrovert. So it was one of the hardest things I had to do. Pick up the phone and call a business that is not expecting my call. Hardest thing to do. But what happened after I did it a few times, which I forced myself to do it. And I'm telling you that with no exaggeration, I forced myself. I put myself in a room and I said, Alex, you are doing these cold calls. You have time. You have time. I have like a whole 2 or 3 hours open window to do these calls. Okay? So I said, Alex, you have time. Okay? You're in a room. You have nothing in here but your computer and your phone. So I said, there is no way you are leaving. There's no way you are leaving this room without you having made some calls. So now I'm like, now that I told myself that, I'm like, fuck, now I have to fucking do this shit. I have to do this. I have to do this. There's no way that I'm leaving here without making these calls, because that's what I forced myself to do. I'm in this room now. I have to make the calls. As I made that first call, oh my God, it was hard. It was hard. I was shaking a little bit, not exaggerating shaking, but I was holding the phone and I was like this, and I was like, fucking, and I felt my heartbeat beating a little fast, and it was very nerve-wracking. And he immediately, I remember the first call, he's like, no, I'm not interested. I'm like, okay, all right. Left it there. I didn't even try and challenge his objection or try and go around it, or because I'm so afraid that he's going to hang up and this and that, right? When it's not even happening. It's just you telling yourself that story of, oh no, like you don't want to bother people in a cold call. It's just you against you, right? So you're telling yourself a story in your head that is not true. Fear stands for false reality. No, false evidence appearing real. Yes, false evidence appearing real. Fear, false evidence appearing real. So you're telling yourself a story in your head that's not true. So what I started to notice, the more calls I was doing, because I did one and then I literally left it, and I left it alone for the day. And I said, I am not making another one. It was that bad. Yes, it was that bad. And so now that I think back, I should have just practiced the script over and over and over again. However, things went how they went. I made that call for that first day and I didn't touch it. And I probably didn't even make, I don't know the second day or the third day. I probably didn't make a second cold call of my career that second day, right? I probably just procrastinated more. This was in 2022. And so what I started to notice eventually when I got on the cold calling habit train, you can say, what I started to notice is I just kept doing the thing. And it wasn't that I immediately started doing 50, 100 calls a day. No. I went at it through increments of steps because I said, I just need to do some calls. I need to do calls, and whether they answered or not, I got to get used to just making the dials. So what I started to notice was slowly but surely, with patience and persistence, you'll make it. And easier said than done, of course. It took a while for me to start making minimum 15 dials, not 15 people I've spoken to, 15 dials, meaning I dial 15 numbers, and whether they answered or not, I made 15 dials, right? It took a while for me to start making 15 dials consistently, and then I started increasing it a little bit more, and I noticed that it got easier and easier. Why? Because now I was getting feedback. Okay, this isn't what they want to hear because they hung up when I said this. So, and then I started to care less and less about the rejection. That's the first step you got to get over, is caring so little about the rejection you get. Because no matter what, look, in sales, I don't care what anyone says. In sales, no matter what, no matter if you're the top in your industry, you are going to get rejected. That is just a fact. You are going to get rejected. People are going to tell you no. Even if you're the top company, because you're not the only company. Okay? So I said, I might as well get used to that. I might as well get used to getting rejected or getting hung up on, because it's going to happen more along the way. So get used to it. And that's exactly what I started training myself on. I said, okay, I just need to get used to this. Two things that I got to get used to. Dialing, because at the time I was just making cold calls in my local area, in the state that I was in. I was making cold calls in my local area from my personal number, because I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, I just need to fucking do the thing. I just need to do the thing. No excuse, no wasting time. Oh yeah, let me buy a number. At the time I had no software that I can use to buy a number, or no CRM or anything. I just had my notes on my computer, my Apple Notes, right? And my phone. So computer and a phone. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to Google painters near me, because I was going with painters, right? Painters near me. I'm just going to Google that. And then I Googled it, and then a bunch of painting companies came up. I'm like, let's just cold call them. And then I cold call number one, right? And then write down their name and on the notes, their name and their phone number. And then that's when I was just very manual. Just, okay, they said this, and I put the date when they, right? And then just call them again. And just basically my Apple Notes was my CRM. It was my spreadsheet, you could say, because then later on I moved on to a spreadsheet, which was still ghetto, right? But it wasn't a CRM, it was just a spreadsheet. But it's all about just doing the thing. And the first thing you want to get used to is dialing. You want to get used to the sound of money, which is that ringing noise when you're calling a number, right? That's the sound of money, because if you're not doing the front end, you're not going to get the reward at the back end. So I started getting used to dialing and that sound of the ringing noise, which I call it, I got it from Maurice, but it's the sound of money. All right, the sound of money, that ringing noise. Second, you want to get used to the rejection, because people are going to tell you no, and you have to realize that. You have to accept it. Okay, I'm going to get hung up on. You know, before a cold calling sesh, tell yourself, I'm going to get hung up on, and people are going to tell me no. But you know what? That's okay, because my service is exclusive and not for everybody. And I'm just swifting through the leads. I'm just swifting through all these leads to see which one is a fit. And how are you going to find which leads are actually a fit and which ones are going to actually turn into closed clients that are going to pay you? Well, You have to go through a lot of fishes in the sea. Let me just say that. So if you want to get good at cold calling, lead generation, sales, closing deals, you have to do the thing a lot, bro, because if you don't do the thing, you're never actually going to progress. You can read books on it. You can watch YouTube videos on live cold calls and stuff, like my videos that I have of live cold calls. You can watch those videos over and over and over, but it's like watching videos on how to shoot a three-pointer in basketball. You can watch all the videos of all the technicality, and this is the muscle memory you want to have, and you want to practice this, visualize, and this and that. But if you don't actually pick up the ball and shoot a free throw for yourself and miss, be like, okay, that one didn't hit. Again. Oh, that one missed again. Again. Oh, that one missed again. So if you don't actually take a shot and miss, you're never going to make a shot in. So start doing that. Start missing shots and failing and failing and failing. Start doing that, because that is what's actually going to help you progress. Not a YouTube video, or not a masterclass, or not a new course that came out, not this new coaching program, right? No, I mean, those things help. They really do. Believe me, they really do. But I look at those things like gasoline to the fire. You have to be the fire, and those things are just the gas that accelerates what's already lit. You have to light yourself up first. How do you light yourself up? You do the fucking thing. Quit procrastinating, bro, because that's only going to set you apart. And what I mean by set you apart is it's going to set you apart from the actual thing that you need to do to get to where you got to go. It's going to set you apart from it, and that relationship between you and the business that you're trying to build is going to start setting apart and drifting away, and you're not going to look at yourself like a real business owner, like an actual agency owner if you're in the agency space, like an actual business owner, a company owner that is proud and convicted. He's convicted of what he does because he believes it. He does it. But in the beginning, when you haven't done it, you have to create that relationship between you and the business that you are building. How do you do that? Let me tell you. You keep your word to yourself and you do the thing. Okay? You keep your word to yourself. When you say you're going to cold call, when you say you're going to do outreach, when you say you're going to do something, you do it at the best, highest level you could do it of your own potential. So get used to dialing the numbers when you're cold calling, and get used to the rejection you're going to get, because you're going to get rejection. Hey, y'all get in my video, man. Come on now. So get used to the thing. Do what's hard, man. Do what's hard and get comfortable doing what's hard, because that's what everybody needs in the beginning. You have to get comfortable doing what's hard. All right? It's just a way of life, man. I'm not the one that created it, so thank God for it. All right? Let's go.